Today is the second episode with Abby Johnson, who is the former Planned Parenthood director who left the abortion industry in 2009. And today we talk to Abby about her pro-life advocacy. You don't want to miss this program, so please stick around. Abby, I do want to get to two more, if possible, two more questions for you. And this is kind of where you've kind of changed your thinking, I assume, over time,
Yeah.
from taking on the kind of the status quo mainstream position of the pro-life movement on certain things. And now you've kind of changed your ways a little bit. And one of them has to do with this question of equal protection, which
Mhm.
is, the law, at least in America, supposedly, we're supposed to, justice is blind. We're supposed to protect everybody equally. When it comes to abortion, we should protect the unborn as equally as we protect the born.
Mhm.
And when we pass laws, which now that we're actually doing this in the post-Roe era in states where we're criminalizing abortion, what's been happening is that you have organizations who are saying, we want to exempt women specifically from the legislation, written in there that they will not be, I guess, criminalized would be the way to put it, or they will not be held accountable for violating, say, the homicide laws, for an example, in a state. You've come around on a little bit of that, and I understand that's not what most people believe. I happen to believe that there has to be women have to be treated equal. The babies need to be treated equally, and there are ways to do this. It's a hard argument to make. Don't get me wrong. Most people aren't going to agree with you right away. But
Mhm.
we find out, I'll just say this, on college campuses, when we are asked that question, do you think women should be put in jail? I don't say yes, or I don't say no. I walk them through. If we believe abortion is murder, which we do, then it seems to me that the punishments for abortion should be divvied out to those who are involved, whether they're an accomplice, whether they're a primary person like
Yeah.
the abortionist. This is something this conversation we've got to have. And it just seems like the pro-life movement just says, no, 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 no. Women are victims. Let's not go there. If you would just share with me your position and why, if you have changed over time, why is that?
Yeah. So I've completely changed my position on this
Hmm.
over the past, I would say, 2 years. And I always knew like it wasn't sitting right in my head because it was completely inconsistent, right? That abortion's murder, but we're not going to act like it's murder in
Hmm.
like a court of law. And so I knew that was always inconsistent for me, but the pro-life movement said this is what we believe. So this is
Right.
what you believe, Abby, right? Um, but I finally was like, yeah, I'm not going to say that anymore. Like I'm going to say what I actually believe. And surprisingly though, Mark, like when you start to like you said, like when you start to really explain it to people, people are like, "Huh, that
Right.
does actually make sense, right?"
They might not
And
agree with you, but they'll say, at least you're being consistent in your
at least that's
position.
consistent. Yeah.
Mhm.
And, you know, and I think you're absolutely right. We just have not been phrasing it in the right way. I mean, I just tell
Mhm.
people, and they're like, "Well, you believe in putting women in prison." I'm like, well, I believe in holding anybody accountable for murdering a human being, an innocent
Mhm.
human being. That's
Mhm.
that's actually my position. So,
Yeah.
I just believe in due process of the law.
Yeah.
So, I believe that if a woman was being truly coerced, truly forced into having an abortion by her parent, then the parent should be held accountable.
Mhm.
If a man puts a chemical abortion pill into her drink, then he should be held accountable, not the woman.
Mhm.
I believe in due
Mhm.
process of the law,
Right.
period. I believe anybody who kills an innocent human being in or out of the womb should be held accountable for murder, period.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
that's what I believe.
Mhm.
And I think it's interesting that like finally we have the opportunity to hold people accountable for murder since
Mhm.
Roe has been overturned, and the pro-life
Yeah.
movement isn't doing it. We've been
Right.
saying that abortion is murder for the past 50 years. Everybody's been saying abortion is murder for the past 50 years. And now we actually have the opportunity to act like it. And then you've got pro-life leaders now, instead of saying, oh, abortion is murder, now they're saying abortion is like suicide. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like now we're completely changing the argument. No, abortion's not like
Mm.
suicide. Abortion is like murder because it is murder.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and I just find it really interesting. And I find it interesting that people in the pro-life movement are like, well, it's not compassionate. It's not a compassionate position. Look, I've had 2 abortions in my life. The most
Mm.
compassionate thing that somebody could have done for me is to have held a penalty for abortion. Because if there would have been a possibility of prison time for a woman who has had an abortion, I would have never have chosen abortion in the first place. And if I wouldn't have had that first abortion, I wouldn't have ever gone to work for Planned Parenthood. And then if
Mm.
I wouldn't have gone to work for Planned Parenthood, I wouldn't have had the second abortion. And so that means I would not have killed 2 of my own children, and I wouldn't have the lives of 22,000 other women's children on my conscience for the rest of my life. That's the most compassionate thing I can think of, is to prevent women from carrying the lifelong burden of knowing that they have killed their children. That is
Mhm.
compassion. That is the definition of compassion.
Yeah, well, you have no disagreement here. I've always held to the position that, if we make it, we protect the unborn equally, that our law should reflect that. I understand it's a difficult argument to make in this culture, but we need to be making it, and we're unwilling. Not all women are victims, some are.
Mhm.
We've all experienced that by seeing if you go to a Planned Parenthood
Yeah.
facility and stand outside it for any period of time, you're gonna see women that are victims and others that aren't. I mean, some that know exactly what they're doing, and that's why, historically, what we've done is we've criminalized the abortionist for good reason, and we've used the testimony of the women, in plea bargaining to actually
Mhm.
bring justice to the abortionist. That may happen again and should probably, but because we want to get the abortionist. But now with the abortion pill being 63% of all abortions,
Yep.
we're eliminating the abortionist from the equation altogether. You cannot tell me that these women, not of course not all of them, don't know what they're doing.
Right.
It's just to me that's just nonsensical, and then we call them victims. I've If I call a woman on a college campus who's considering abortion a victim, I get just
Oh,
buried.
yeah.
People argue, "What are you talking about? Women know they're strong, they're able, they're this." Women are victims, they don't wanna be called victims either. They know they
Well,
wanna be a moral actor, right? That's in charge of their lives, and I think we're demeaning them by telling people that they're victims.
I
I just don't
agree.
think.
And the pro-life movement has been talking out of both sides of their mouth too. So on one
Mhm.
hand, you have groups saying women are, the pro-life movement says, "Oh, women are empowered. They're so strong. They can do anything. That's why we start pregnancy resource centers. We want to embolden them, blah blah blah." And then the same groups will say women are victims.
Right.
Well, it can't be both,
Can't be
right?
both.
Either
No.
women are strong and they're empowered and they can do anything and they can be single moms, they can go to school and have babies and blah blah blah, or they're victims and they're puny and they're weak and they can't do anything. It's it's either one or the other, but it can't be both.
It can't be
And
both.
and that's the message, is that I don't believe women are victims. I've had 2 abortions. I was not a victim either time.
Mhm.
And so there are a very, very tiny, tiny, tiny small percentage of women who are truly victims. But the overwhelming majority of women who walk into abortion clinics and have abortions are absolutely not victims, particularly with the internet available, right? We're not
Right.
living in the days of like everybody pulling out an Encyclopedia Britannica, right? Or having to go to the public library to figure out what an abortion is.
Right.
Everybody has one of these. Everybody has a cell phone. Everybody can Google information. It's at their fingertips, particularly young women that are having abortions today. People know they're pregnant with a baby.
Yeah.
People know there's a living human being in their womb. They know exactly what they're doing. These women are not victims.
Yeah, it reminds me of when we were having the debates over rape and incest. We didn't wanna talk
Mhm.
about, "Oh, we can't outlaw abortion in the event of rape and incest." And then we got over that. We made the case, and now that is the position of the majority of the pro-life movement. Our politicians don't hold to that, but
Right.
that is our position. It was a hard argument to make, but we made it over time, and I think the same is true now. We need to start making the case. I don't
Yes.
I We can make the case, it's not that difficult. Women are gonna be held accountable based on their, what they call the meeting of the minds, that is that how much they know. That's just like any courtroom. There's
Yep.
first, second, and third degree murder. There's manslaughter. There's different degrees. So that's the way it should be treated here. We just don't want to exempt them, and that's where I'm telling people don't exempt women from our laws. Allow the court system through the prosecutors and the judges and whatever the juries to come up with their decision. But we shouldn't
Mhm.
exempt them from the laws. I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So let's move on. One last thing, if you have time.
I have time.
Okay, great. This will air after the debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. But I also have been curious because I know that you're not. I think if I should go back, you supported Trump in 2016, and I believe in 2020 you even spoke at the Republican National Convention.
I
Was it
did.
2020 or 2016? I don't recall, but
2020. 2020.
2020. Okay, the virtual one supposedly,
Yes,
wasn't it?
that's
I
right, the
think the one in
virtual one.
Milwaukee
Yeah,
was it? Yeah, the
yeah.
virtual one. So, but recently you've been sharing your concerns about Donald Trump and how pro-life people have just been blindly I'm not putting words in your mouth, but just following him,
True. Mhm.
and your concerns that is not helpful, politically
Yeah.
speaking, long-term wise, as far as our movement, where we're going to. So, would you share with me your views on that?
Yeah, I'm very concerned. I mean, I used to believe that politics was always a binary choice, and I've
Hmm,
spoken about that, before that, it's always a binary choice, one or the other, one or the other. Lesser of two evils. But I really
right.
have come to a position, I've really been convicted about this, that we have to stop making that choice. That, we did have good people in the primary. We did have good
Mhm,
options in the primary.
mhm,
And we didn't even make Donald Trump primary. We didn't even make him come out and argue for why he was a good candidate. And honestly, I mean, I'm not like a fan of Bill Maher, but he's been the most honest person, I think, on TV lately, because he's been
mhm,
honestly talking about Donald Trump. I recently said, like, I think Donald Trump could dye his hair blue and show up in a T-shirt that says, trans rights or human rights, and people would agree with him. And I think he's right. I mean,
mhm.
because Donald Trump he is supportive of the LGBT agenda, and
Yes, he
and
is.
conservatives still support him. He is now he's asking everybody to compromise on abortion rights,
Mhm,
and he gets the endorsement of all
mhm,
these pro-life groups. And he's out there saying he supports abortion. He's out there calling heartbeat bills disgusting. He's,
mhm,
it's crazy to me.
mhm,
He's supporting all of these, you know, Arizona banned abortion. He said that was terrible and they needed to overturn that. How can that be the pro-life candidate for our movement? It's insane to me.
mhm,
But we keep going with the evil. We keep going with the lesser of two evils.
mhm,
And this is we keep compromising, and we see where compromise has gotten us. It has gotten us a morally unfit candidate. And everybody's like, "Oh, well, I'm not trying to get a pastor in the White House." I'm like, "Well, maybe we need one. Maybe that's the problem, right? Is that we have left God out of the equation for so long. This is where we are now. And
mhm.
now I just saw an article come out that the Republican Party is trying to take the pro-life plank out of the platform. And I'm like, "Well, of course
That's
they
not the
are."
first time, by the way.
No,
I've
it's
I'm
not.
I've been around long enough to know that that's not the first time they threatened it.
Yeah. And
But
I'm like,
but
"Well,
I
of
think
course
you're
they
right
are."
that there's probably a bigger threat of it this time around than ever before, but
Yeah,
I've
because
I've
look,
seen it.
look
I've
at the
seen this
leader.
show before.
Yeah. I mean, look at the leader. He
Mhm,
doesn't believe that we need to, and he's blaming pro-lifers for losses. I mean, that it's not
mhm,
pro-lifers. It's
mhm,
because they keep running terrible candidates
mhm,
and they keep compromising. I mean, what moderates are actually winning right now? Moderates aren't winning. It's people on the extremes that are winning, right? It's really
mhm,
conservative people that are winning or really liberal people that are winning, right? People that are moderates like Dr. Oz, they're not winning, right? It's not the moderates that are winning. You can't show me any moderates that are winning. People either want really conservative candidates or they want really liberal candidates. And now's not the time to just be like compromising all the
So
time.
let me ask you this, because I'll cut right to the chase. Right now, he will be the nominee, more than
Yes.
likely, even if he's in jail.
Hmm.
And Joe Biden, more than likely, is going to be the candidate for the Democrats.
Hmm.
What alternative are you suggesting, that we sit this out this time? Because there's not a third party option, and in the past, there had been.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've only bucked the Republicans once or twice in my lifetime and voted for a party candidate, but I don't see one. You're not gonna vote for Robert Kennedy Jr., I assume. So
No.
what is the option this time around?
Okay. So right now, I am waiting to see who Donald Trump's vice presidential pick is going to be. That is going
Okay,
to determine whether I vote for him or not.
gotcha.
If he picks someone who is abhorrent on the issue of abortion as he is, then I will write in someone because I do think we have a duty to vote. I do think that we cannot sit out elections, but I do think our congressional elections right now are even more important than the presidential election. So
Mhm.
I will absolutely vote in all of the other races. Um, but I will not. Um, I
So
will
what
not.
if he picks a strong pro-life, and I don't on his short list, I'm not sure who those will be, but,
I don't know either.
uh, in the ones that are in the discussion,
Yeah.
that would maybe be enough, and why? Is it because they might be the successor if he were to
Yeah.
win? He would
Yes.
be the heir apparent to the White House, right? In the
Yes.
Republican side.
Yes.
Gotcha.
I because I don't think. I mean, I mean, if we're honest, Trump's about the same age as Joe Biden.
Mhm.
So everybody keeps going on about like, oh, Joe Biden's so old. Well, Donald Trump is so old, right?
Yeah,
And so we may be looking at a vice president that ends up becoming the president.
with either one of them. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
with
true.
either one of them.
Mhm.
So I think the vice presidential pick in this race is incredibly important.
Yeah, I agree. This is probably the most consequential vice president pick that I've seen
Yes.
any president or nominee ever have to make,
Yes. So I've
because of the
heard,
fact that we know it's only one term too.
yeah. So I've heard like Sarah Huckabee could be on the
Mhm.
list. She would be a
Yeah.
good I would support her.
Mhm.
I like her very much and I believe in her pro-life position. I believe she's very sincere. Um but a lot of the ones that he's put on his short list, I'm like, what are we thinking here?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of this is how I feel, Mark. I feel like at this point, I would rather lose than continuing to put moderate after moderate after moderate
Right.
in an
Well,
office.
listen, I've been in that place. I've told people I'm gonna vote for Trump, but I
Yeah.
have my own views on this, and, I've been in that place before, and I respect people's conscience on this. I think it's one of those decisions that they have to make. I don't disparage people one way or the other if they vote for Trump or not.
Yeah.
I'll make my case as to why
Yeah,
I
and I
think
don't
it's
either.
probably
Yeah.
worthwhile doing it. Uh, I did see he spoke to the what was it, Faith and Freedom. Of course, it's a very, Christian-based
Mhm.
organization where he laid out all his, accomplishments on pro-life, and, but he has as we all know, he has shirked the responsibility of the federal government to do anything on this, and we know that that's not appropriate. We know the federal government does have a place and should, and he's just basically said the states can have it, and he doesn't really. It seems like he doesn't really care how works out. So put it up for a vote. Uh, I don't. I oppose that. I don't think that the states should have a role, but obviously the federal government does too. And he won't even weigh in on a 15-week ban, which to me, I'm not sure whether that's even useful, to be honest with you. But he won't do that because he sees it as a loser politically. This is not a core issue for him. It's
No,
not one of those issues like I think Ron DeSantis, for an example, is more pro-life. The guy, it's
for
part of
sure.
his being.
Yeah.
Where Donald Trump it never was. He was a pragmatist, and he got 3 justices on the Supreme Court. God, wonderful thing. But I don't think it's because he was pro-life. So
No.
that's what we're dealing
But
with, and
but
I tell
even 2 of
friends
those
that we
even 2 of those justices have been incredibly disappointing on other issues.
lately,
I
absolutely, they have.
mean, so it's like
They got Roe right, though. They got
they
Dobbs
got
right.
Roe right, but it's like they're failing us on the border, they're failing us on immigration, they're
Mhm.
failing us on other issues. It's
Yeah.
like, are you really conservative? I'm not really sure. I feel like we kind of have like a John Roberts,
Yeah,
situation
could
going
be,
on with
could
Kavanaugh
be.
and Coney Barrett, so,
It could
yeah,
be, and I think we are heading towards, unfortunately, and this is I've been warning people, we're basically gonna have 2 pro-choice parties before long
yes,
unless we do something about this, and
yeah,
then we are running out of time. And if Donald Trump gets in or loses, this gotta get fixed because we don't if we don't have a party, we don't have political, uh, we don't have political power. I mean, you've
yeah,
gotta have a party
yes,
that you can promote your positions with, whether that is the Republican Party or some other party that might arise out of it. I've never been a big third party person, but
I haven't either.
it may the time may come. I mean,
Yeah,
the time may come where I just can't do it anymore,
yeah,
and maybe you're there, it sounds like. So,
yeah. You know what I'm ready for, Mark? I'm ready for Trump to be done. That's what I'm ready for. I'm ready for the time to come where Trump is just done and we can,
yeah.
he went in. The reason I really like Trump in the beginning, he went in as just a regular guy. He went in as a businessman. He went in as somebody
Mhm.
who is not a politician. When he came out a politician and he's running now as a politician.
Yeah, it's
And
true.
that's what I hate right
Mhm.
now. If he was
Yeah.
like back to that guy that he was running in, 2016, 2020, I would be wholeheartedly like stumping for Trump. But he's running 100% as a politician and asking everybody to compromise on every issue. Plus, I'm like super pro Second Amendment, and he was the guy
Mm.
that banned bump stocks. And he's whittling away at our Second Amendment rights, and I'm not super
Mhm.
for that either. So there's a lot of issues like the LGBT stuff, the Second Amendment stuff, the pro-life stuff, which is of course number one on my list.
Sure.
He's just not the conservative candidate for me. But I am looking forward to
To the
the
vice
next
president.
election. I'm looking forward to the
Mhm.
next presidential election
Mhm.
unless Jesus comes back, which I'm open to that too.
Well, and he has said that he's going to be announcing soon. So
Yes.
it's not before the debate because that's coming up, but he will be announcing, and that will be, I think, like I say, the most consequential VP pick that I think a nominee for the
Yes.
Republican Party president has ever made. So,
I agree.
but I appreciate your positions here. Abby Johnson's been my guest today. You can go to abbyj.com, and you also want to make sure that we check out the new documentary, which is Unthinkable, and you can go to Unthinkable Doc, that's doc.com, and set up a screening of the movie. The movie is not available currently publicly, but it will be in the theaters, and eventually it will be available streaming online as well. Also, you can go to abortionworker.com, find out more about how Abby has worked tirelessly over the years to bring out abortion workers from the abortion industry. Abby, thanks for taking all the time today. We
Of course.
appreciate it. Love to have you back on as
Of
this
course.
continues with the election and other things. We appreciate all that you've done and continue your voice as someone who has a unique perspective on everything that has to do with the abortion battle. So appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Mark.
Well, friends, I hope you enjoyed Abby Johnson there in the two-part series that we had with her, talking about her experience in the abortion industry, her views of abortion victim photography and whether they work or not, whether it's at a clinic or at a public university or on the streets, and also her views on politics and how she's changed over the years, in really just coming up with her own views and not just following what the mainstream of the pro-life movement is it takes a position on. So I hope you enjoyed that. And to find out more about Abby's work, you can go to abbyj.com. That's abbyj.com. Also, don't forget the Unthinkable documentary is soon to be released into theaters, but you can be part of a screening if you wish by going to unthinkabledoc.com. Unthinkable Doc, that's unthinkable, doc.com, and you can sign up to be one of those people to have a screening, a private viewing, if you will, of this new documentary that Abby's put together, talking about all these and just witnesses, people, young people that have left the abortion industry, being interviewed on this show. Sorry, you're gonna have to fix that. Um, So again, unthinkabledoc.com is where you can sign up for the screenings of her new documentary, and you can go to abbyj.com to find out more. We'll see you next time. God bless you. God bless America. And remember, America, to bless God.
You've been listening to Mark Harrington, your radio activist. For more information on how to make a difference for the cause of life, liberty, and justice, go to createdequal.org. To follow Mark, go to markharringtonshow.com. Be sure to tune in next time for your marching orders in the culture war.